Good afternoon, everybody. It is noon Central Time, so we're ready to start. Welcome, everybody, for joining this webinar. My name is Michael Iacovatipo. I'm a Senior Director for the Hispanic Alliance for Career Enhancement, and we are very pleased today to have a great speaker for us focused on ERG strategy. Jai Vargas will be joining us in a couple of minutes. Just a few things to get us started. First of all, I want to make sure that everybody knows that HACE is doing everything it can to provide resources and support during this situation with COVID-19. And this is one of the examples where we're providing virtual webinars, coaching, different sort of cafecito and conversations to keep our community engaged, equipped with resources and support and tips for you to continue in this transition. So just know also that we are sending positive thoughts to your family and yourself during this time. As said before, this webinar will be recorded, so you can actually receive a copy of this after it is terminated, just to share with colleagues, those maybe in your ERG groups who could join us today. And then we'll have, of course, some time for Q&A. We have a lot of people joining today from all across the country and different companies, many of them we work with right now. So a quick hello to some of our partners like Accenture and Allstate, AbbVie, Salesforce, and welcome to all of you who are new to the HACE community as well. So we'll spend some time in the end for Q&A with our speaker. And in the meantime, just a quick introduction about HACE. We are a non-for-profit 501c3 based in Chicago since 1982. And at the core of our mission, it is to advance Latino professionals in their aspiration in their careers. We've been doing this now for over, so many years by connecting employers with job seekers, by providing platforms for conversations, by providing resources and inspirational speakers to motivate and to inspire community to go forward. And some of our key programs, if you haven't looked at those on our website yet, include professional development, leadership development programs such as Mujeres de HACE, and the Emerging Latino Leaders Program, which is being held virtually this year all across the US. And so we've always worked on a national basis with about 64,000 members who go to HACE for resources, for jobs, for resources to help themselves to be higher in their positions, to advance. And then most recently, we've been focusing a lot more also on the ERG management and engagement. And I've been rolling out some different initiatives to support you in that sense. So you can go on our website to learn more, of course. There is no cost to sign up as a member. If you have an interest in joining us as a partner as an ERG, you can talk to me. I'll leave my email information in the chat room later on today too. And just like we all have to adjust to this new environment, we just recently launched also a job board. I just wanted to make sure that you saw this just in case you know anybody in the community who has been impacted by laying off, by furloughs, who may be in transition in their careers. We have this brand new website where people can access 18,000 jobs from our partners. And those people are looking for Latino talent like yourself and your friends. So check it out. And then finally, from our standpoint, we are also about to roll out a new virtual program called the Executive Leadership Tour, which basically will be held in across 7 cities in the next few months. We are bringing some of our partners and sponsors, ERG groups, to create a platform for Q&A, for innovations, for ideas sharing. And we're going to be featuring also a panel of executives from each of the companies sponsoring the event, and the ERG members will be joining us as well. The theme is going to be the collective power is to Latinoate 2020, and more precisely right now as to becoming a collective and mindful leader in terms of resilience. So if you also have an interest in joining us for these events, send me an email and we can talk more about it. But without further ado, I just wanted to introduce our speaker today, Jai Vargas, the founder and CEO of Jai Diversity Consulting. I've had a chance to work with her in the past couple of years. Jai is a phenomenal speaker, an ERG influencer. She's a consultant that speaks to ERG groups to help them to get off the ground, to help them to better more engage with their members. And today she has given her time to speak to us about some of our recommendations on how to deal with this virtual environment we're living in right now. And as we know it, of course, too many of the ERGs funding has been cut through the DNI budgets. and have to come up with very creative ways to continue to showcase the impact, the ROI to their members on why it is so important to become part of an ERG and BRG group. So without further ado, Jai, you can take it from there, and we'll have a chance to reconnect toward the end of the session. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Michael, and welcome everyone. Thank you so much for being here. I'm going to turn my camera on so that you could all put a face to the name. There I am. Hi, everyone. So I want to introduce myself really quickly. My name is Jai Vargas. I'm also a Latina and Latinx. I want to tell you a little bit about my professional background and just appreciate you for being here. Happy Earth Day, and I hope you're all staying healthy. So I'm a career and diversity strategist. I specialize in ERG development and engagement. So that's exactly what we're doing here today. I'm going to be able to share a number of ideas that you can implement strategically over the next couple of months, now that we have this new temporary normal. A little bit about myself. I'm a professional branding and thought leadership strategist. For those of you who know me well, know that I am the LinkedIn ninja. I am absolutely obsessed with the LinkedIn platform, and I'll be telling you just a little bit about how I use LinkedIn, specifically with ERGs, later on in this presentation. I'm also a mentor for the city of New York, where I live. New Jersey, New York. Hey, everyone. If you can actually drop into the chat where you're calling in from, I'd love to know what cities are here. But I help other women entrepreneurs in the city of New York understand how to either launch or scale their small businesses. I'm also a community builder, so a lot of you probably know me from the work that I do with the Latinista. It's a group that I started 8 years ago with the purpose of making sure that Latinas and women of color understand where to find the tools and the skills necessary to grow their career. It's all about career mobility. I also just jumped off about 9 years of being with New York Life Insurance, where I used to manage their multicultural strategy. And that's where I got a lot of my experience in managing their Latino ERG, their women's ERG, and also their LGBT ally group. Before that, I was working at the US Tennis Association, managing diversity as well, and then spent some time at a PR agency, as well as where I first started 16 years ago at one of my favorite places, Mercedes-Benz headquarters right here in New Jersey. And so let's review today's agenda. We're going to be talking about recognizing our current most prevalent challenges right now with COVID and with being virtual. We're going to talk about the importance of a baseline assessment, which is where we should all begin before we start developing programs. And then I'm going to share a couple of ideas around technology that you can use for a more inclusive work culture. And then we're going to land on goal setting and roles for a successful virtual third quarter. So yeah, if you have the ability to, please jump in the chat and tell us a little bit more about where you're calling in from, what city. And if you have any questions, I want this to be a conversation. Please let me know if you'd like me to stop and address any questions. But we are going to let about 15 minutes of our time later on today, 40 minutes from now, so that I can address any of the questions you may have. So in the chat, first I want to start by asking you, what is your biggest challenge when it comes to your ERG right now? Whether it's COVID related or whether it's just in general on a monthly or annual basis. I'm going to jump into the chat to see if you're all able to start the conversation. Let's see. I don't see anyone typing in the chat. Do you, Michael?
No, not so far. You can also use the questions.
Yeah,
as well.
I'm wondering if they're having a challenge typing in the chat. There's also a tool down at the bottom that says Q&A. Oh, okay. So I'm getting messages on my cell phone. It says we can't type into the chat box. All right.
Okay, cool.
Well,
I'll look into that.
yeah. While you look into that, I'm actually going to give you some ideas of what I've seen as the most prevalent challenges. Thank you, Francisco. One of my good friends, Francisco Estrada from Nike, is on the line. Thank you so much. I'm going to take a stab at telling you a little bit about what I think your most prevalent challenges are. Probably recruiting members, probably retaining members and engaging them as well. Program development, of course, now virtually, that is certainly a challenge. Also, requesting budget or losing budget, and now dealing with those sponsorships and budget you've allocated for this year and are now trying to figure out what you'll do with or for those organizations that you promised to support. That's a big one. Another challenge that you may have within your ERG is that there's probably too many decision makers, right? So you've got co-leads and subcommittees and then chief diversity officers and then the managers within the chief diversity officer and your subcommittee and your co-leads. Too many cooks in the kitchen. Another challenge, engaging executive sponsors. Perhaps you have executive sponsors, but they're not necessarily engaged. Maybe they come in once you announce that they're the executive sponsor, and then you kind of don't see them. Let's see. I'm going to click on the questions tab. Oh, no, I don't see anything there. Okay, I'm going to keep going.
Yeah, hey Jai, actually I have access to those, so let me go and give you a couple of insights. There's been a lot of participation and feedback on this question. Some of the examples are no budgets, clearly, of course, is what we talked about before. Finding some ways to develop in programs virtually is very important. Second person says the same thing too. Advocating for diversity and inclusion is very important as well as an ERG. How do we do that? How do we connect ERGs in a meaningful way during virtual work from home status? Especially how to keep people engaged all over the US. Let me see. Yeah, keeping people engaged, activities. What are your thoughts on those?
Wow, I love that. Yeah, being more inclusive, attracting members virtually, adding value to the business, member engagement, metrics. A lot of people are from Morristown, Missouri. Welcome, everyone. This is all great. Chicago, fantastic. And yes, we are sending a replay for whoever asked that. Fantastic. So yes, all of those challenges. I'm going to drop back into the presentation here. And mention just a few more that we may not have collected. Leadership training and turnover, right? So for those of you who manage the co-leads for the ERGs, you may have a challenge in the fact that perhaps you onboard a leader for the ERG and 6 months or a year later, you've got some turnover. Another challenge that you might have is Zoom fatigue, right? And so we're getting so many webinars and so many conference calls via Zoom that you're probably like, oh my goodness, if I receive one more Zoom invitation for this week, I'm gonna scream. That is real. Zoom fatigue is real. Another challenge that you might be experiencing is connecting the ERG to the business's bottom line. And I always talk to my clients about this particular challenge, understanding how your business works and how the members of the ERG are going to help you drive the business to the bottom line. Here's how I want you all to start. Given the example that I just showed you by me asking you what your biggest challenges are, that's exactly how we want to lay the foundation for our members. Developing a baseline assessment. I'm going to jump back into the questions here, or let's see. Yeah, within the questions, tell me if some of you already have a baseline assessment or a survey that you make accessible to every single member that joins your ERG. And as you're chatting there in the question box, I'm going to share with you a couple of things that you should keep in mind when creating a baseline assessment. Oh, I see the engagement happening already. Fantastic. Love it. Yes, many of you. Yep. Recently created a survey, got some engagement. Wonderful. And so that's the first step. Even if you already have members engaged, it's good to do a membership survey every 6 months. And so the goal is, right, create an online survey that asks members, current and future, so that you can work to address the most prevalent and relevant career development pain points. That's what ERGs are here to do. Help an employee get some internal mobility and help them aspire to a leadership position, perhaps being a more confident public speaker, or any of their pain points. Right? You're not only collecting career-focused insight, but you're also wanting to make sure that you're collecting demographic information. How old are they? Of course, asterisk, make sure that you're working with HR and that you're allowed to collect demographic information. But you want to make sure that you know where your members are coming from, what communities they live in, how old they are. Are they baby boomers? Are they millennials? And here's an example of a survey that I use with all of my clients, right? And the top points are: make it digital. Use SurveyMonkey. SurveyMonkey is our friend. Yes, you have to pay for the advanced version of SurveyMonkey. For the most part, you can use the free one. Gather demographic information, gather career-focused insight, and use it as a recruiting tool. Did you know that in 2025, 75% of the global workforce is going to be made of millennials? And so when you hear this thought, you should try to keep this in mind, because a lot of your program needs to start speaking to this audience. But of course, you're not working in a silo. So you want to make sure that if there is a millennials ERG that you're partnered with, that you're having program partnered with all of the other extensions of ERGs. These are some of the questions that I ask here. What professional development area would you like to focus on? And you give them options, right? So try to make it as easy as possible for your members. Perhaps they say, I'd love to learn how to make better negotiation decisions for my salary. Or perhaps I want to be a more assertive, confident public speaker. Perhaps they say, I want to create a stronger personal and professional brand. And then also give them some options when it comes to the next development workshop that you're going to be hosting or that you're thinking of hosting. So that second question is there. Which professional development workshop would you like to attend? Reverse mentoring strategies, how to be a more assertive and confident public speaker, or navigating difficult conversations. You also want to ask them, how were you hired? How were you hired here? Was it through LinkedIn? Was it through a referral? Was it through a family member? How long have you been employed here? And are you interested in being part of the ERG planning team, right? So every individual that signs up to be part of your group, you want to make sure that you start collecting all of this information. And I'm going to show you a few tools in a few slides that are going to help you capture and maintain this information absolutely up to date and relevant. For those of you who are looking for a more sophisticated platform to work through your data and analytics, I actually use Pluto.life with some of my clients. This is an incredible tool. It's basically like you're filling out a story of your life. You talk about your age, where you come from, how you got recruited. It talks about productivity as well as fairness and engagement. And the best thing about it is absolutely anonymous. And it gives organizations an opportunity to interact with all of their members in an absolutely anonymous way. And it opens up that dialogue. It's a phenomenal tool for those of you who want to get to know it a little bit more. When you add me on LinkedIn, I can tell you all about it, but pluto.life is the website. And this is a much more sophisticated tool that I use with my clients. Now we're going to start dipping into technology for engagement and inclusivity. I'm going to see if we have any other questions at the moment. Okay, perfect. So let's talk about some of these technology-based tools that are going to make our life here in running ERGs more successful. I love to use SurveyMonkey or Google Forms to be able to collect information and keep it relevant. You want to lead a lunch and learn conversation? Sign up using our Google form, right? So at the end of the day, or at the end of the month, the quarter, or the year, you want to pull a report and say, okay, so we launched this initiative in which we're looking for subject matter experts or members of our community that want to lead a lunch and learn. And we received 60 individuals with ideas, and we know what department they work in and how much experience they have in speaking to this topic. So I love using Google Forms, but sometimes the firewalls within your organizations doesn't allow for this. So therefore, you could probably use SurveyMonkey as well. The next tool I want to talk about, for those of you who are pretty used to some productivity tools, is Trello. Trello is a project management tool. This allows access to your entire team. So here's an example. You want to put together an event for Pride Month in June, and you want to do it specifically for Latinx speakers from the LGBT community. You can start creating this event online on Trello. You can add biographies of all of the speakers, high-res headshots, the program outline. You can talk about the catering that needs to be ordered, right? When you're back in your offices. You can talk about perhaps the presents that you're going to be talking to and sending for the speakers. Every single aspect of event planning can be done on Trello. This is also a free tool that I absolutely love using. Every conversation I have with every individual is documented on Trello. The next technology that we're going to talk about is Slack. I know a lot of you already use Slack. For those of you who are not familiar with it, it's basically a chat box in which you can have subsets and different channels. So here's an example. I've got an entire Slack community for the Latinista. And within that community, I have subsets of my chapters and even other conversations such as diversity inclusion or a job board or perhaps online events that are happening. So anyone can open up a Slack community and have these conversations. So for you, an organization, you can have XYZ company, and the different channels within Slack are going to be the marketing department, the creative design department, the insurance department, right? And so you can have conversations as openly or as candidly as you can. There's also an app. I know a lot of my colleagues and a lot of my clients out in California are all about Slack because they are way ahead of the game when it comes to this. And not last and not least, because I've got a few more for you guys, something that you're probably all kind of tired from, and it's of course Zoom. You're using this to make sure that you open up conversations like lunch and learns, right? You can invite thought leaders from the industry or speakers in general to come in and have talks for your ERG members. And here's an opportunity for you. You can have a monthly charla on wellness, on productivity, and on community giving. Here's one of my favorites, because some of you know me as the LinkedIn Ninja. Something that I love to urge ERG leaders to do is to rally all of your ERG members, grab an open opportunity at your corporation or your company, and have every single ERG member post on their personal LinkedIn page. Let their community and their network know that your organization is hiring and they're looking to hire more diverse candidates. This is something that I urge every organization to do, because the responsibility of recruiting talent should never be only on the shoulders of talent acquisition or someone in HR. So this is very important to me. Here's another tool that some of you may or may not know about. It's called Canva. And I've received many invitations for ERG events that are not necessarily in brand. So please, when you use Canva, this is a graphic design tool that will help you create invitations for all of your events. Sit down with your communications team and ask them, what are the branding guidelines? What are our official fonts and colors? And we need high-res pictures, headshots for all of our speakers to drop into Canva. This is another free tool, right? So take advantage of some of these tools and make sure that you're setting up these structures, right? And so when you develop these templates for all of your invitations, they should all then live on Trello or Slack or Google Drive so that everyone in the organization can access them. And you can even put a password on those tools so that when someone requests to use that invitation, you are alerted, and then you can say, hey, I'll help you fill out this template because I want to make sure that you don't have any challenges in filling it out. And last but not least, you can see here that I've called out Calm. Calm.com is an app as well as a website where you obviously do some meditation practices, but recently I've actually jumped in there and have started hearing a lot of sleep stories. They're 5, 10, 15-minute sleep stories that you listen to before going to bed. And this reduces stress and anxiety. And they also have some programs in there that improve performance. And because of the current climate at the moment with COVID, Calm.com has actually made all of these absolutely free. And something that I would urge you all to do is to host a Wellness Viernes Zoom call and focus on some of the aspects that you can find within a free Calm program. This is something that I urge you to do because I've heard for so many people in the community, they're having such a difficult time managing their stress and their anxiety. And if you can be that safe space, perhaps on a weekly basis, for anyone to drop in on a conversation, you can create that safe haven. Perhaps only 2 people show up, but hey, you might be surprised and maybe 50 people will show up. Just create that safe space. So if that was all overwhelming to you, there's actually a webinar coming up tomorrow with the heads of Trello, Slack, LinkedIn, and HubSpot, talking about the current challenges that we're facing with COVID and having to transition so much of the work that we've been doing online. If you connect with me on LinkedIn, I'll send you the link, and make sure that you just become, you don't have to be an expert on these particular programs, but you can probably designate someone within your group to attend these webinars and make sure that they're being effective and sharing it with the rest of the team. Because at the end of the day, that's exactly what we want to do, is become a resource for everyone within our groups. So now let's talk about some more ideas in setting up a virtual and successful third quarter, because it's all about the long-term strategy. Yes, a number of these programs can be probably turnkey, and you can probably do them within a couple of weeks, depending on how much engagement or support you have of your members. But now I want to ask you about your business case for your ERG. I'm going to jump into the questions here, and I want you all to tell me, do you know what WIIFM stands for? I'm going to jump in here. Does anyone know what WIIFM stands for? Let's see. All right. So WIIFM stands for What's in It for Me? The business case for your ERG. And let's talk about that. For any of you that have had a challenge in getting RSVPs, engaging members to actually show up to your events, whether they're in person or webinars, have you ever thought to yourself that these members are probably asking themselves, well, yeah, that kind of seems like a good program, but what's in it for me? And so I would urge you to create a list of benefits, right? So that when someone asks you, okay, this looks like an interesting program, what's in it for me? You're able to talk to them about some benefits that are relevant to what's happening and going on in their career world. And so I've taken a stab of listing out some benefits for you in case they're relevant for your ERG. So when you join our ERG, you can find or become a mentor or a sponsor. When you become a part of our ERG, we can focus on your career development plan. Take that blueprint that HR has made available to all of us, and let's sit down and really chunk out how we're going to accomplish this. When you join our ERG, you can learn new tools like Trello and Google Drive, and how to effectively use LinkedIn to develop your personal and professional brand. When you become part of our ERG, you can become a leader with us. Perhaps you're not a people manager yet. Maybe you don't have an intern reporting to you yet. But here at the ERG, we're looking for individuals to step up and become a leader with us. Do you want to manage one of our subcommittees? Are you great at communications? Or do you love PowerPoints? Do you want to track our membership list? You can become a leader among us and then even put that on your resume or talk to your mentor about the ways in which you're growing. When you become part of our ERG, you can practice public speaking, whether it's online or in person. Public speaking is one of the most challenging and most asked for programs within ERGs. When you become part of our ERGs, you can express your creativity with us and you can practice thought leadership. Are you an amazing artist, a singer, or are you highly passionate about creating graphic designs? Are you interested in working on maybe marketing techniques or teaching us something new? Express your creativity because maybe you're an accountant, but you also love to paint. We'd love to sort of be that guiding force behind your career, making sure that it's a cohesive, a more holistic and empowering space for you. When you become part of our ERG, you'll gain access to senior leadership. You'll be able to have conversations with our executive sponsor and for individuals who've been here for many years and have done great. When you become part of our ERG, you'll meet external and industry thought leaders. We're bringing in individuals via webinar and in person that you can connect with that may be able to help you in your career journey. When you become part of our ERG, you'll be able to learn how to network and do more networking, as well as work on your community building. Perhaps you have some new colleagues, or maybe you've entered into a new department, but don't necessarily have the camaraderie or community building yet. You can invite them to our program so that you can share something in common. And what we always want to make sure is that this isn't a silo. Our Latino ERGs aren't just meant to be for Latino employees, they're meant for everyone. This is for allyship. The number one thing that I try to talk to my clients about is, yes, we have our safe spaces for different cultures and ethnicities and sexual orientation groups, but it's all about developing allyship and bringing other people into the conversation that can help us with our challenges. When you become part of our ERG, you'll make this place more diverse by helping us recruit from your community on LinkedIn. When you become part of our ERG, remember, we're going to teach you how to tie your position to the company's bottom line. You want to make sure that you understand how the work that you do on a daily basis is tied to the company's mission and vision. You want to ask yourself, what keeps our CEO up at night? And once you've answered that, you're then able to start structuring the work that you do, whether it's in your everyday work or in the ERG work that you're managing those challenges. I'm going to dip into the questions again to see if we have any recent questions.
Hey Jai, there is a question. What tips do you have for creating a blog or a website for an ERG? How do I start the process and ensure that the site has what members need?
Ooh, that's fantastic. The first thing that I would say is make sure that you sit with compliance and that you're allowed to have either an internal or an external blog or website. Of course, there's an organization that we all know of. I'm not going to mention their organization, but they have public and private LinkedIn groups that are also a space to be able to share insights like testimonials, membership, engagement, and more particularly, they ask 3 questions to their members on a monthly basis and give them the ability, the access, and the platform to be able to share a little bit about their personal or professional lives. I've seen some really successful ERG closed groups on LinkedIn. So what I would suggest is first sit down with compliance and make sure that you understand the opportunities and the challenges of doing so, and then sit down and say, well, what's the reason why we want to create a space like this? You want to make sure that you're not recreating the wheel, and you also want to make sure that you're very specific with the mission and the vision of this chat or blog space. And then you want to set up a cadence. Is this something that you're going to be working every week, every month, or every quarter? And then you're going to want to spread the love, of course. So you'll want to make sure that all of the other programs are integrated so that when you publish, you're very strategic in saying, okay, as soon as we publish, we're going to send out an email blast. We're going to put it in the Trello. It's going to be in our intranet site. We're going to put it in our Slack channels. We're also going to make sure that it's on our LinkedIn closed group. And we're going to make it a very diverse and inclusive conversation so that it's not only managed or heard from the people that lead these conversations. So I hope that helps out.
Thank you. There's one more question, and I think maybe we can ask everybody else to respond to it. Chiara is asking us for ideas on virtual events, development activities that we can do virtually. Just, it's very difficult today to do any kind of celebrations. I think it's, of course, inappropriate in sense. So what are some thoughts and ideas that maybe you've already rolled out in your plans that you could share with the rest of this group? Thank you.
Yeah, that's a fantastic question, and I'm glad you asked that because that is what we're speaking about today. So before we get into that, I want to share with you the programming process, right? Let's recap. Know the challenges, put out a survey. Next, set a realistic monthly goal for the 3rd quarter and who's responsible. Also, remind members of the benefits of being part of our ERG. Then define roles and responsibilities. It shouldn't be your entire responsibility to draw the conversation, put together the programming, gather the headshots and the bios, and then blast it everywhere. This should be a collective responsibility. And you know what? There's plenty of people that want to get involved. Also, identify thought leaders and speakers that can help you execute your vision, like me. Of course, track success metrics and determine how your ERG is impacting the company's bottom line, whether that's recruiting, sales, education, or giving back. If you see that these are the ways in which your CEO isn't getting any sleep, you want to make sure that your ERG is looking to create programming to help and aid in recruiting, sales, education, and giving back to the community. So now, here's an idea for you all for a program that you can run virtually. Perhaps you can share a weekly motivational TED Talk. This one right here is #4 in the world by Dan Gilbert. It's called The Surprising Science of Happiness. What you can do is have a Zoom call after you send the video and have everyone watch it on their own, and then you can have a Zoom call. This could be on a Friday afternoon, or maybe it's to start the week on a very motivational, on a very powerful, on a very engaging week, right? So you can have a Zoom call to discuss the top 10 TED Talks in the US. I really, really love this one and suggest that you start with that one. The #2 one is actually Body Language by Amy Cuddy. But here is another opportunity that you can do virtually. Help your Latino ERG members connect with organizations that you already have a relationship with. I do a lot of work with Hispanic Federation, which is a national nonprofit that's basically the umbrella organization for Latino institutions here on the East Coast. Have someone from Hispanic Federation or from the organizations that you currently support in the Latino community, invite that organization's leader to share on a Zoom call how others, part of your organization and your members, can get involved and give back. Or you yourself can just ask them the top 3 questions that you've collected from your members to want to ask for that individual's specific role or what's happening in their particular organization at the moment. Another idea, and for those people who love focusing on wellness, you can host a weekly wellness viernes call, right? So you can do a guided meditation or a stress reliever. You can focus on mindfulness and gratitude, and you can do that with the Calm app. I've actually attended quite a few wellness webinars recently, and you would be surprised. And I'm not a meditation type person. I love being around thousands of people, and I meditate in a different way, which is running around and jogging or maybe going for a hike. But I've attended quite a few of these, and they've made a difference in the way that the rest of my day plays out when it comes to mindfulness. So I would strongly urge you in making this an opportunity on a weekly basis. And like I said, maybe 2 people show up, but it becomes a safe haven for those that absolutely need it. I know that some of you are representing organizations that don't have a budget for someone to come in and host a very strategic wellness camp, but this isn't too difficult for you to take on your own. And I can actually share a lot of contacts that are professionals in this space. Another idea that I want to share with you is to create a support system for parents. You can call it Los Padres. And this is also via Zoom. And the idea behind this is to create a parenting and a teaching support community, right? Invite professionals to support, engage, and share resources and best practices to parents that are at home trying to teach their kids while being active members still within their full-time job. I've got a friend with 6 kids trying to do homeschooling, and she's got a really difficult job, and 4 people report to her. So she has actually started a community similar to this one, complete with her friends and as well as some colleagues, where they just share best practices, and they can say, hey, I called my internet provider and asked them if they could donate higher internet speeds because I've got 5 kids on the computer while I'm also trying to drive business. And so now that you have a couple of ideas on how to engage your community, I want to remind you that staying connected and building community right now virtually is so important. And one of the most important questions you can ask your member is, how are you doing? How can I help you? Whether that's personally or professionally. The next thing I want to remind you of is Creating time to learn new tools like Trello and Slack and Google Drive is relevant and absolutely timely. Let's use this time to learn these productivity tools so that when we can go back to our offices and our desk, we're being more productive and more efficient in the work that we're doing. Also, I want to remind you that success is actually going to be measured by how you execute and how often, right? So perhaps you're thinking that you're going to do 15 events this year. You know, quantity is not the name of the game. Quality is the name of the game. And what I always tell my clients is if you've been doing this for 10 or 15 years and you've got an amazing support system, yes, do monthly workshops and activities. But if you're trying to get to the most efficient, most productive contribution of programming, do it on a monthly or a quarterly basis. And I want you to know that one of the other most important things is to offer formal or informal support on technology. You've got to make sure that your individuals are given the opportunity and the access to learn how to use these tools. A lot of us work in organizations that don't necessarily have a budget to provide these tools. And so sometimes some of us are a little bit behind when learning them. Have some empathy and offer support and just take a deep breath. Also, I want to encourage you to share success stories that empower others. Perhaps someone was just experiencing an incredible amount of growth within their particular job. Perhaps they just received an award from an organization. Perhaps someone gave back to the community and you want to empower others to learn about how they can do so as well. Perhaps someone just received a salary increase and you want to just celebrate everything that they've done for the ERG. And don't forget, you've been made a leader in the ERG space, and we're here to empower, nurture, inspire, and support our members in their careers. Never forget why we're here. And so I want to ask you, before we open up to Q&A, what is the one action item you think you can take away from today's conversation and implement? Let's see. I'm going to try to find the most recent. If Michael, you can help me because I can't figure out the question box here.
Sure. So while you're answering this question, we've had a couple of really good questions that came up. One of them actually talks more about what is the ethics point of view? What is the right thing to do? Is it all right to ask members to go outside and volunteer with a local organizations during COVID? And I don't know if you want to answer this quickly, because I know that we've been saying that we need to support the community, we need to support our community partners. What are your advice on that so that we have also safety at the forefront?
Absolutely. That's a great question, and it's one that I've heard before. I personally would not feel comfortable sharing information that's going to put my ERG members at risk. It's a huge risk for the organization and it's a huge risk for your members. I would say no. But secondly, I would check with your legal department and compliance team and making sure that you're following their guidelines and their advice. Of course, you're all chiming in from all different parts of the US. Some of us are open for business and some of us are not. I would suggest it's probably a better idea to give help and support through purchasing gift cards if you can use your budget for that, or helping in more virtual ways. But sending out your members outside is probably not a good idea right now. I think it's a big risk for organizations.
You know, I think on that note, I think that the duty of the ERG is really to communicate to its members and update them on their relationship with its community partners and what's really happening on the ground with them. So if the community partner has a need for food, has a need for housing, has a need for technology, has a need for money, just bottom line is that non-for-profit right now are really hurt as well financially. What can you do as a collective power of an ERG to either raise money to buy maybe supplies or items that you can then deliver without having to be there in person. So I think sometimes the empowerment is just letting people know, not so much having to control and act on it yourself.
Absolutely. I actually created an Amazon list for the Latinista, for the International Refugee Committee, for the IRC. And I shared the Amazon list with all of my Latinistas nationwide. This came out of my San Diego and LA chapters. And it's an incredible way to help a nonprofit and organization by you simply donating money. And then that toilet paper or any materials that they're asking for is delivered straight to that organization's headquarters. But it's been really successful.
Great. So we've had a lot of responses to your question. Rebecca says, I will look for opportunities to build community through the TED Talk and follow up with Zoom sessions. Zoom meeting from Laura, implementing a survey to get started from Christy. People are responding really well, I think, to the TED Talks. I see this pop up quite a few times here. So great advice on this, Jai. Thanks so much. And then Lunch and Learns. As questions, please continue to send those. We still have some time. Let me see which one I can find. There's a question about how do we engage across ERGs, right? So we don't work in silos.
Oh, that's a great one. That's actually one of my life's mission. I have developed and launched many ERGs for women, Latino, and also LGBT. And the number one challenge that we face is that they become silos, right? And so you'll walk into a space, a program, an event, or a room where there's 300 women, part of the women's ERG. And then the men or other people that aren't part of this group feel left out, or they feel awkward being in the space. I think one of the most relevant programs that you can deliver is connecting with other ERGs within your organization and developing joint content. The next opportunity that you're going to have is Pride Month. That's coming up in June. So like I said before, you can have a virtual panel of LGBT Latinx speakers talk about their experiences and their career trajectories, and then you can partner with the LGBT ERG. You can pool your money together. That's another great benefit of putting together programming, right? So when it's Women's History Month, the Latino ERG should be partnering with the Women's ERG and developing joint programming that everyone should have a say within that conversation. At the end of the day, you want to make sure that everyone is welcome. That's how we can make it the most inclusive space for all of us. And so make sure that when you're driving programming, you're inviting others to the conversations of programming, but also in execution. You never want to become a silo.
Thank you so much. The next question actually came up a couple of times today, so I'll sum it up for you. But what do you suggest in terms of structure of an ERG, committees, subcommittees, roles and responsibilities? Let's say you want to get started from scratch. What do you suggest to get started?
Yes, absolutely. So I've seen many different structures when it comes to successful ERGs. There's no right or wrong way for these structures. The ones that I've seen work pretty well is that there are two co-leads and they report to a higher entity, let's say, whether it's the Chief Diversity Officer or someone in training and development. There should be two co-leads sharing responsibilities, but among those two co-leads, then you'll have subcommittees. Subcommittees that I've created in the past are marketing and communications, right? Those are the ones that make sure they receive all of the information for the speakers. They're the ones that are going to be publishing to the intranet, to the Trello, to the Slack channel. They're the ones responsible for collecting every bio and every headshot and working with corporate communications to develop a template for all of the invitations that you're going to be sending out. Then you want to create a subcommittee for your volunteers. You're going to need volunteers to either help in registration, in welcoming, to help move the conversation along with all of our promotion as well. You can even have committees specifically geared to connecting with other ERGs, right? So this will be the engagement committee. And that committee can be comprised of individuals that are specifically focused on reaching out to the South Asian ERG, the LGBT ERG, the African American ERG, and letting them know, hey, we're going to be developing this program, and we hope you can help us either plan, share some ideas, or help us execute. And we'd love to share the budget with us as well. So there's many different ways that ERGs are structured. I think the gist of it is make sure that you write down every single item in your checklist for event planning and then bucket them, and then create a subcommittee for each of those most relevant sections. And if you connect with me on LinkedIn, I can give you some more insight about that as well. But there's no right or wrong answer. And it also depends on how much membership you have. I work with organizations that have 50 employees and probably only 3 women, and they're trying to, create a women's ERG. And so for the most part, their women's ERG is actually majority men. So we've created male ally groups within these orgs. So yeah, many different structures. And making sure that you don't set yourself up in a silo is important. Thank you for that.
You're welcome. I think we have time for maybe one more question. And I've seen this also from other people, so I'm going to bring that up, I think, just as a final touch point on talent acquisition, right? So as you said before, the ERG have a role to help the organization grow through the hiring, through the pipeline development of talent from Latino organizations and communities. What happens sometimes is that those efforts don't get noticed by TNA, by the HR folks. And so how do you suggest, number one, that ERGs partner better with TNA? And also, how do they get recognition for their efforts to make referrals for employee hiring?
This is a great question. Thank you for asking that. I'm going to turn my camera on so you guys can see me while I answer the last one. This is actually something that I did quite often when I was at New York Life. I made sure that it was my responsibility to sit down with someone in talent acquisition and HR and say, I'm an active member in leading this Latino ERG. I want to make sure that this organization is being as diverse and inclusive as possible. I want to make sure that the resumes I'm sending you from my friends and my colleagues in my network are actually being looked at. And so I'm going to speak to the decision maker in HR. I'm going to sit down with them and I'm going to ask them, tell me a little bit about your recruiting process, so that when I share with you some individuals who've already applied, who meet the criteria, and come from my network, are being either interviewed or at least are receiving a phone call. And so I want to make sure I understand their process before I start suggesting what they should or shouldn't do. So I've sat down with my talent acquisition lead and head. I've made sure that they understand where I'm coming from. I want to make sure that they understand that I'm here to make this organization, my department, and my work a more inclusive and diverse space. I'm going to bring to the table a number of open opportunities that are already existing on our website. And I'm going to show them those opportunities. And I'm going to say, I see that you're hiring for a social media manager. Number one, the language that you're using on that post probably isn't speaking to my community in the way that it should. I want to help you when it comes to actually changing the language, the tone of the vocabulary to make it a little bit more diverse and inclusive so that we can focus on a broader community that will then be apt to applying to this role. And then I want to understand how we can better partner in this opportunity. It's all about speaking to the decision maker. It's all about coming to the table with opportunities and growth and a good heart, letting them know that you're doing this for the betterment of the organization. And then it's also making sure that you know how to track those metrics so that you as the ERG lead say, next Friday, everyone in my ERG has received the compliance approved information, and we're all going to be posting at the same time on our personal LinkedIn profiles. I'm going to prove to you that my network is going to bring in at least 100 applications and resumes and LinkedIn profiles from diverse populations. In 2 weeks, I'm going to print out all of these applications. I'm going to make sure that I have everything either in Trello or Google Docs or an Excel spreadsheet so that you can see the names and the applications and the roles and the responsibilities of those individuals that have applied. And then we're going to have a very serious and honest conversation about who's getting a phone call, why or why not, so that I'm also not wasting your time and maybe sending people your way that don't qualify. I want to be absolutely sure that I'm sending you people that qualify for these roles. And so I hope that answers that question just a bit. There's so many other things that go into play when it comes to compliance, communications, structure, and speaking with the decision maker, but that's sort of the 20,000 foot level.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Jai Vargas, for joining us today. We're going to wrap it up here and tell everybody to thank you for joining us too. My final comment would be that in this sort of times, the main focus of ERG should be to stay visible. That means connect with your executive sponsor, connect with your members virtually, even if it's a simple, informal get-together virtual hour once or twice, a month. Stay active in supporting each other is the #1 key right now. When we look at brands out there that are successful during this time, it's not those who are selling, who are pushing, who are trying to stay, on the same course as before. It's those who are agile, ready to change and ready to support and meet the needs of the current situation today. And as we know, the Latino community is highly impacted by this. The unemployment rate actually is higher than the national average right now. We do need to have an ear and a voice to our community members and ERG members today. So with that in mind, keep in mind that you are important. With or without budgets, you matter, and some people are relying on you for support and leadership in those times. So thanks again for joining us today. Stay in touch with us. So we have weekly webinars that we host on different topics. Thanks, Jai, again for being here, and we'll be in touch, everybody. Thank you. Take care.
Thank you all.